All right, music fans, welcome back. It is I, Dave, the real music observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you, just like me. Uh, Brad Delp, the amazing Brad Delp, left planet Earth prematurely back in 2007. And unto this day, people still have a lot of questions as to, you know, this guy who was universally loved, who apparently really was great and easy to get along with. Uh, Yours truly, I remember being in a room where Brad Delp was. I never got to actually shake his hand and so forth, but he was mingling with people who were uh, smiling and enjoying Brad's company and so forth. And, with all of the music that came out during Brad's time here on Earth, it seems that he was probably a neglected soul in some ways. And the fact that he probably wanted to record more music, and because of things like lawsuits that were always pending, and the very slow turtle like work ethic of Tom Schultz, uh, maybe combined with an ego that was very large. We never really got to hear uh, Brad Delp again singing with Boston the way he could have done so much more work. In other words, and I think he wanted to work. When he formed RTZ, he basically told Boston, "See you later." And then Giant, the record label, sort of under promoted that project, which, if you go listen to it, it's just a tremendous album. There was a band called Fahrenheit from Boston that came out right around the same time, a little prior to that. And I mean, the both albums have this very accessible rock but pop type sound to it. It's classic rock meets the time period, and the RTZ album spawned a couple of really great songs. Face the Music and Until Your Love Comes Back Around were the two that got the most airplay. But if you go listen to that record, it's a start to finish thing. You can easily put some headphones on, and Brad sounds fantastic. Uh, but as time went on, it just seemed it was getting harder and harder to produce music with Brad Delp. Not that he was the problem, but then Boston comes back with this corporate America thing, which I think was a bomb. The tune "Walk On" did get some spins, but by the time they worked everything out to put that album out there, it was 1994. And the music industry at that time was in full just collapse uh, because of the grunge movement and these two chord bands that have, sort of taken over everything. And there's no place at that point for a melodic rock band. Uh, and to add insult to injury, the album itself wasn't all that good. If you're a great band like Boston, to kind of get in the door at that time, you would have had to put out like something like the first two albums, which this wasn't that. Okay, this was a bomb. Uh, as time went on, I know uh, Brad wanted to work with Barry Goudreau more, and they did get together just prior to Brad's leaving planet Earth. But it was almost like just this, maybe that was closure for Brad at that point. He had done that album, he had left something else for the world to hear, and at that point he was done. It's just one of the great voices of all time, and a lot of people have speculated that, Tom Schultz was the guy who more or less put Brad in a cage and said, "Hey, when I need you, I'll call you." And over time, that doesn't sit well. I mean, you are this guy who you drive down the road, you turn on your classic rock station, and your voice is going to be heard either on, well, probably on the first three Boston albums, all over the place, all the time. and you're thinking, hey, we can do this again. And the original band, those guys weren't really ever together. I mean, Schultz basically assembled new guys to take their place. He kept Brad because Brad is, the signature. Tommy DiCarlo, sounding and looking like Brad Delp, is essential to the current lineup, the current version of Boston. And even to the point where he's starting to look too much like Brad, and I did a video about that not too long ago. Maybe he's taken the look a little bit too far, but you go from the Home Depot guy to the, because that's what he used to do, to this iconic frontman for this amazing band, and you've got to kind of look and sing the part. So it's just weird. Brad Delp, this underutilized, brilliant vocalist, you can make the argument certainly that Brad is probably one of the greatest vocalists in rock history. His voice is on my favorite album of all time, which is Boston's debut, which I told you about yesterday. And it's really hard to replace that. I mean, they attempted a few years ago to do an album. It was good, but it wasn't Boston's debut. And I got to tell you, I miss Brad Delp. He would have only been about 67 or so. So he could still be out there performing. Not sure at what level. I'm not sure if he'd even want to perform, but I know he and his pal Barry Goudreau would probably be out there doing something. At least, live your life out peacefully in New Hampshire where you were, and maybe make the occasional appearance, but it's just sad. All right, I'm Dave. This is the Real Music Observer. I'll be back doing more real music in real time real soon.